Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and we are back with episode 4 out of 4 in this Friday Short series with the founder of Fit for Golf, Mike Carroll. Mike, this has been fun, man. I don't know. We may have to run this back at some point. I'm not going to lie. Talking with someone else, way better than talking to myself.
No, it's been good, and this is the one I've been looking forward to. This is my favorite topic.
We intentionally left this to the end of the series for you guys. I had it as number 1. Mike very intelligently, he kept pushing. He said, no, it should be number 4. I think he was right. So let's talk about speed. And all good things come to those who wait. So thanks. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying these shorts that Mike and I have done. Definitely let us know if you're liking them. We'll do more of them because we definitely are enjoying them as well. So, all right, speed. It's the topic. Everybody talks about it. There's tons of training aids that are making lots of money off of speed. It is the hot topic, right? I mean, fitness. It's lift weights, swing faster, get more mobile, swing faster. It's the topic for everything. I'm a big framework guy. I'd love to hear your framework, Mike, in terms of how you think about somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to swing faster." Yeah, how are you approaching that?
So the big two are physical capabilities and swing mechanics. You can break physical capabilities down into 3 main areas. So mobility, strength, and I would say explosive power. It's really mobility and explosive power, but strength is going to play a big role in 100%. The explosive power part, and it's the one that we can change the most, basically. And in swing mechanics, there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like I would say and this is where the range of motion gets important. Like, is the person going through a big enough range of motion to get the swing speed they want? There are certain players for definite who can get really high speeds with a short range of motion, like John Rahm and Tony Finau are good examples. But most normal-sized, average athleticism amateur golfers don't really have that luxury. And from there, you can kind of go down a number of different routes, but that's kind of what I always come back to. If I see someone, like I love looking at speeds on tour, for example, checking who has the highest club head speeds, and then looking at, well, what does their swing look like, and what sort of size and structure are they, and how do they get this 120 or 125 club head speed? And then on the flip side, if I see someone that has a pretty low club head speed, I'm trying to figure out, that's kind of weird because they look pretty big and pretty strong. Yeah. What are they doing with their swing? Or if it's someone, man, their swing looks awesome, like why is their speed so low? And then you're like, well, they don't look like they've done much physical development. So it's trying to kind of mix all that together, and it's the very same for amateur golfers.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting, from a speed standpoint. One of the ways we've looked at it is, with looking at the data collection and trying to understand how fast people are relative to other golfers their age. It's trying, instead of comparing everyone to, Rory, or the guys on tour, and saying, hey, if you're 60 years old, I think that was my first question, was always, hey, like, what is actually good for a 60-year-old? And then, to your point, looking at those buckets of, is this a physical issue? Is this a technical, efficiency thing that can be gained? A lot of times I would say, I don't know if would you agree, it's typically a bit of both, particularly amateur?
100%. Like, if you think of most amateur golfers, they have plenty of room to improve physically, and they have plenty of room to improve with their swing mechanics.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. Sometimes you'll see a golfer post, I'm 70 years old and I swing X. I don't need any more swing speed, and then I love all the follow-up comments from all the guys his age who don't swing that fast, and they're like, "Screw you!" like, look, good for you. That's not I don't have that luxury. But like when you get a guy like that, like, I always will look at kind of like, do they have, to your point, do they have the range of motion to make the full swing? Because obviously we know as guys get older, the explosiveness tends to decrease. So having a longer on-ramp to accelerate sometimes is helpful. The strength is likely lower than what it needs to be to support that. But then we see guys obviously who maybe are technically very efficient and can make up for speed that way. When you're looking at, that 60-year-old guy who comes to you, you look at this, let's say their swing is pretty efficient, so we'll kind of call that, good enough. How do you start to dive a little bit deeper into the physical categories of the, speed explosiveness, or the explosiveness, the power, the strength, the mobility side of things?
Yeah, it will mostly be asking them what they've done in the past. So like, what is your training experience? Like, what did you do in the past and what have you been doing recently? And from there, just coming up with a basic program for them to get started on. I know you guys work with people like in person or online more individually, so you can go into like a kind of more detailed screening process, like which definitely has benefits. But I also think that for the vast majority of people, they're still going to make progress even without that, based on
0 to 1, you'll make progress.
Like based on a conversation, knowing their profile, knowing that what they're trying to get better at is swinging a golf club, you can give them some mobility and strength programming that's going to help them for sure. And then I think like the lowest hanging fruit for a lot of people on top of that is if they've never done speed training, I think that's just a no-brainer for initial gains. And what's interesting with that is like I said swing mechanics and physical capabilities at the top of the show and how you can branch off those into different things. Speed training is an interesting one because it impacts your physical capabilities and it impacts your swing mechanics. Yeah. It's kind of a Venn diagram between both of them. Because if you're working on your swing speed, you're going to be doing things to your swing mechanics and you're going to be doing things to your physical capabilities. It's not one or the other. And if somebody has never practiced trying to swing faster, that's generally low-hanging fruit for gaining like 5, 6, 7 miles an hour, I would say reasonably easily, depending on what their starting point was. And they should take that for definite because it doesn't really require, I would say, like any thought or even that much effort. It's something that comes pretty quickly. And then after that, once they've hit sort of a big plateau with their speed training, which definitely tends to happen early on, like 3-6 months, I would say, then I think diving into swing mechanics gets more important, and that will probably require help from an expert instructor.
For sure. So how do you, with the speed training, this is something that we've always, I don't want to say struggled with, but I'd say wrestled with, right? You get somebody like, what are the cases in which, because to your point, my favorite saying that I use is a monkey could get somebody faster. It takes intelligence to get someone faster without them getting hurt. So obviously we've talked in episode 3, if you guys didn't, our third episode that we did in this, we talked about capacity and the impact that has on injury risk. How do you manage that, or for people listening that are like low-hanging fruit, speed training, what are the guardrails that you'll tend to kind of put around that for guys who maybe don't have any, their mobility is no good, their strength training maybe is, entry level at best, we'll say, but mechanically they're already kind of optimized, from a technique standpoint.
Yeah, it ties in perfectly with what we talked about in the last episode. And for me, the keys there are starting very small. Yeah. And seeing how the body reacts. Like I'd be not too much in the camp of you need to have a certain amount of strength or a certain amount of mobility before you can start speed training. Like for definite that helps. But I think if somebody is like playing golf and hitting balls without issues, I don't think it's high risk or a problem to add in low volume speed training on top of that and see how they react. Whether that be with, sorry, go ahead.
So you would say that's kind of the ash, because that's kind of, when we first came out with a lot of the early data, it was like, oh shoot, okay, avoid speed training. And then as we've gone over the last 5+ years, I'm more towards that camp of, I think it's definitely more of a capacity volume thing, and that the more strength you have more capacity. So obviously you could do more with less chance of getting hurt. But I think that was an important piece that I don't want to brush over for everybody listening, is that when Mike said you can go ahead and do the low volume as long as you are okay.
Yeah,
Like you need to check in with yourself like during and after the session the next morning, right?
So like if someone is struggling with an injury, or they're picking up niggles and aches and pains from practicing or playing golf, well then diving into speed training probably isn't the best idea, because it's more stressful than playing golf or practicing golf. But if someone is playing and practicing golf without issue, like they don't have a problem swinging, then I don't see any problem with suggesting, hey, like when you're well warmed up during your range session or during your practice session, like we can add 7 to 10 drivers where you see if you can get your speed up higher than what your normal speed is. So if your normal speed is like, so let's say they hit some wedges, they hit some irons, and they work to driver, and they hit 5 drivers, and they're at averaging 92 miles an hour. And you tell them, okay, for the next 7, let's see how high we can get your club head speed. And they're doing that 3 days a week or 2 days a week. Yeah. Like that's pretty much as simple as I would get someone started with.
Well, that's what I would love, with like, I know you do. I know you do some stuff with Stack, correct?
Yep.
Yes. Like I would love. I may talk to Sasha about this. Like I would love for them, because the algorithmic, the way that they can monitor, obviously with the app, what their speeds are, what the person's speeds are. I would love for there to be a way to almost input like where they're physically at, and then in a way kind of track the capacity and then the injuriness of it, where you could be like, hey, here's, based on your profile, we're going to start you, super low level 1, and then if you're feeling okay, then progress you to level 2, and then level 3. And basically, I think that would be the ideal way for me, for people to get involved in speed training as soon as possible, but to do it in a kind of a guardrailed, or bowling with bumpers in a way, kind of keeping you out of the gutter.
Yeah, like my philosophy, to be honest, with pretty much everything physical training related, is start with what feels like is too little.
Yeah. And
see how you react, and then build up from there, because it's really easy to add progressively. And when you're starting, you don't need much at all to make progress. And like plateaus come pretty quickly. So as long as you're making progress, I wouldn't really be worried about the rate of progress, because you're going to hit a wall a few months in anyway, most likely. You don't need to rush to get there, because by trying to rush and adding more and more, you ramp up the injury risk, but don't really do much in terms of changing where you're going to get to. It might just take slightly longer. So that would be as simple as I would start for someone. Like if you feel like you're okay hitting balls, let's start adding in some speed training where you're trying to get the number higher than where you go with your normal swing. But on top of that, I would say I actually love for basically all golfers that are capable to at least go through a couple of programs on the Stack, because I think it does a really good job. When it removes the ball, it gives them some different weights, and their sole focuses on learning how to move like the tip of that shaft faster. I think pretty much all golfers improve their swing mechanics and get a lot faster. Where I think golfers might need to kind of think about this a little bit is when they start to hit their big plateau, which they will. I think that's when like the mechanics of how you're actually swinging might need to be looked into more closely, because it's hard to figure it out on your own. So I think it's likely going to require some videotaping, or to be honest, a lot of videotaping, and probably some feedback from a coach. Like the biggest progress I made for sure was when I started doing more filming of my swing and working on changing the mechanics, rather than just trying to make the radar go as high as I could with more and more effort. And like now I'm swinging way faster than I could when I was trying to go as hard as I could, but with attention on how I'm moving rather than how hard I'm moving.
Right. Yeah, and I think to me, I think the stack is the best out there in terms of there's some science behind it. There's not some science, there's a lot of science behind it. But also it's going to track the capacity, right?
Yeah, and the other thing actually, like it helps for sure. The stack put in a concepts section into their app. So like Sasha goes through things you should be experimenting with for speed, which are great. I think most people though, like if they spent a little bit of time working with the coach on where their swing might be lacking in terms of why they're not swinging as fast as they could, I think that could like supercharge their progress basically. Like I semi-regularly get messages like from app users or people who kind of follow me posting my speed training online, and they're saying, you know, I've kind of hit a plateau, what do you think? They send me their swing, and like immediately you can see, okay, like there's definitely more available here, but you're going to need to change some things because what you're doing now, it's going to be hard to continue gaining.
Yeah. So yeah, I think net guys, for everyone listening, to pick up the speed, you know, to stay healthy, it's a capacity thing. Go back and listen to episode 3 that we did in our 4-part series here. I think if you're going to use training aids, I think we both are big fans of the stack, and just monitoring. You know, start low, start slow, see how you feel, check in with yourself, make sure that you're, you know, don't push through nicks and aches and pains. If you're getting those things, then you had not gotten them before. The stimulus is probably a little too much. You got to back down a little. You know, maybe that's where we need to get the strength up, get the mobility up. And, you know, the better the strength is, the better your mobility is, and obviously the capacity likely is going to be higher that you can do. But definitely no reason not to look at speed training, you know, early on, assuming that you're doing it intelligently. Anything else to add there, Mike? Because I know this is a huge topic for people.
Probably the biggest like shift I'd like to try and encourage for people is a lot of people think of speed purely as an effort or output thing, but I would suggest viewing it as as more of a skill, like that you're trying to become a master of a movement, and that like the lifting weights, like the getting stronger and more powerful is great. The trying to swing faster is great, but like almost think of it as the way like that someone learns how to basically become an expert at like even something like dance or playing an instrument, or someone who's like throwing a javelin. Like there's some intricate things you'll need to get into, or even the way that people would approach like their normal golf swing, let's say, you know.
Well, I mean, we work with all the long drive guys, and if you go down and watch one of their training sessions with Bobby Peterson down at One Stop Power Shop, like Kyle, Colton, I mean, all those guys, I mean, their warm-up is legit 45 minutes. And it is looking at all 7 different positions, and they're going to hit 10 balls at a time, just focusing on that first position. And then they'll go 10 balls just focusing on the second position, then 10 balls just at the third. Like, and they go through, they've hit like 100 balls just working on technique before they've even started like warming up, quote unquote, into their speed training session. So to your point of how much time and effort they're putting into the skill development, people have like no concept, if you talk to the average golfer, when, you know, the technique and skill of speed.
Yeah, like technique is so important for speed in the golf swing because it's such a complex movement with so many joints involved. Like, for example, if we compare it to something that's, let's say, about as basic a movement as you can think about. So if we think of, let's say, someone's trying to improve their output on something like a seated leg extension, like a quad extension, right? Where you're fixed into position, it's one joint. There's not really any learning to that. And there's no real ways where you can come up with a better technique, because it's pretty much one thing. It's just how hard can you extend your knee. But when we consider the golf swing, we have essentially our whole body, almost all the different joints in our body interacting. And then we also have a club in our hands that has a long shaft that bends, and we've a head on the end of it, and it travels this huge distance. There's so much opportunity for us to tweak our movement pattern and compound ways to get more energy or speed out to that club-headed impact, it can just have an exponential increase. And that's why the technique stuff is so important. It's very different to increasing, like, definitely like an arm curl or a leg extension, but even like a deadlift or a squat or a jump or even sprinting, there's way more to it even than those things, which have a skill element as well. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down, because it's more intricate, it's harder to understand. Trying to get better at the technique stuff might not be as fun as whacking it as hard as you can, but I think that's where a lot of the big gains come.
100%. So, net guys, be smart about this stuff. There's no inherent danger about going for speed. You can go for it right away. There's lots of low-hanging fruit gains to be had. With the asterisk, you got to do it intelligently. Listen to your body. You should not, start slow. I think, Mike, the way you said it, like, start as if it's almost too easy. So, and that's, I think, one of the benefits. Stack obviously starts you slow, but even if you're just swinging your driver 7 times as fast as you can at the end of it, like, start low, make sure your body's okay recovered, and then just progress from there.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thanks as always for hanging out with us. Mike and I have really enjoyed these. I know selfishly I much rather enjoy talking with Mike than talking to myself. So if you guys are enjoying this, let us know. We'll do more of these. We'll put them out for you. Other topics you'd like to hear the two of us kind of talk about, dive deep into, let us know, and we'll deliver. So thanks as always for hanging out with us here on the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. Look forward to catching you on the next episode.